Hi everyone. I want to read the introduction to a fairy story that I've written. It's a European classic, but while traveling in Tibet a few years ago, I was lucky enough to be told a Tibetan version, and that's the version that I'm going to give the introduction to now. This is what I've written about it. The first time I encountered the idea of a hungry ghost was when traveling in Tibet, living in a Moroccan mansion that is supposedly filled from floor to ceiling with jinns. I'd become especially interested in anything relating to the supernatural and supernatural forces. One day, when I was chatting with a Nepali traveler in a valley outside Lhasa, we described to each other all the places we both yearned to visit. Without any context, the traveler said, "You remind me of a hungry ghost." I didn't understand. "What's that?" I asked him. The Nepali gesticulated with his hands. "A life force with an absolutely insatiable desire," he said. "Insatiable in a bad way?" "No, not necessarily," he told me. A few days passed, and as they did so, I zigzagged my way around a fragment of Tibet, traveling only to places on the approved list. The thought of hungry ghosts gnawed away at me. The more I tried not to think about them, the more I did. So I resigned myself to find out more about them. Up until then, a Han Chinese guide had been forced on me, and he was dead set on towing the party line. His name was Zhang, and whenever I asked about Tibetan culture, he would scowl at me and then grind his back teeth together. "Tibetans need to learn how to live correctly," Zhang would say. "But theirs is an ancient culture," I would reply gruffly. "Perhaps, but our culture is far older, far wiser, and far more glorious," said Zhang. From the first moment I'd encountered him waiting for me at the airport, as I had, with a sign bearing my name, every single cell in my body had loathed him. He was bolshy, smug, and entitled, three qualities that I find utterly reprehensible at the best of times. Worse still, though, was the way he regaled me constantly with Chinese Communist Party propaganda. He would scribble little post-it notes and hand them to me all throughout the day. Almost illegible, the notes were suggested ways that I might improve myself. A selection received in the first week spent with Zhang read, Number 1, think clean thoughts and do not criticize. Number 2, have respect for our great culture. Number 3, compared with the party, we are all worthless. Number 4, facts are the solution to fear. Number 5, harmony comes through working together, not through walking alone. When asked about the concept of the hungry ghost, Zhang dismissed it as a nonsense worthy of an idiot. Rather than getting angry, as I usually did, I actually felt sorry for him. "We're very different from each other," I said. Zhang agreed that the remark was something that we did actually agree upon. That night, when I lay down to sleep, I felt kind of excited in the way that a little boy feels excited the night before Christmas. A little before dawn, I got dressed, packed my shoulder bag, and hurried out of the guest house where we were staying. 10 minutes after that, I was in the back of a small pickup truck heading away from the guest house from Zhang and from his wretched propaganda. The days that followed were some of the happiest of my life. I travelled slow, mostly on foot, in no special direction, and without any purpose at all. With no knowledge of Tibetan, I communicated with hand signals and with smiles. I felt part of a lost tradition, that of the dervishes ambling from one valley to the next, with nothing but my thoughts and the odd stranger for company. One afternoon, when far from the guest house at which I had left Zhang, I met a Tibetan student called Dorj, who spoke English. He was sitting by the side of the road, drinking a fluorescent pink soft drink. We got chatting and I ordered one of the pink drinks, which made my tongue go numb. Dorj was muscular and young. He explained that he was studying in Lhasa, but had come to visit his family, as his sister had just given birth. Without any warning, I asked Dorj what he thought of the hungry ghost. He looked at me sideways. Then he shrugged. "Are you sure you're ready to know about them?" he asked. "I think so. At least I hope I am." I had only known Dorj for a few minutes, but he appeared extremely gentle, quite the opposite of my former nemesis, Zhang. "I have lived here all my life," he said. "You're lucky." Dorj nodded. "In all the years I've lived here," he told me, "I've heard about the hungry ghost, but I haven't felt I was ready to learn about them yet." "Can you just learn about them at any time?" I asked. "No." "Why not?" "Because they're not something you read in a book," Dorj told me. "Aren't they?" "No." "Then what are they?" I asked. The young Tibetan student slipped me half a smile. "They're a way of being," he said. I said that I understood. It was a lie, because I most definitely did not understand. "I'd really like to know about them," I said, "and I had really hoped that I'd find someone like you who could fill me in." "Eventually, you may well find someone," Dorj said, "but they'd be an imposter." "Oh," I replied, "I suppose an imposter's the last thing I'd want." We sat there in silence for a very long while, as I wondered what to say next. Dorj finished his pink fluorescent drink, and he burped loudly. "There's a way I can explain it to you," he said. "Explain what?" "That way you have to do, the way that sometimes you have to do things for yourself," he told me, "as a way of preparing yourself, of getting ready." I gushed with thanks, although I had no idea what he was trying to say. "Will you explain it to me?" I asked brightly. And in his own time, Dorj began to speak the story.